Hello, everyone! I've got some important information lined up for you. Today we're diving deep into the hidden dangers of canned foods. We all love the convenience, right? Pop open a can of soup, some beans, maybe some fruit for a quick snack. But what's the real cost to our health? We're going to break down how canned foods affect your body, the impact they can have on children, and why that long shelf life might not be as great as it seems. Trust me, after today's video, you'll be looking at those cans in a whole new light. Okay, so let's start with the basics. How does canning even work? Essentially, it's a three-step process. First, processing the food, then sealing it in cans, finally sterilization to kill bacteria. But high heat can destroy nutrients, vitamins, minerals, the good stuff. Cans are often lined with BPA. BPA can leach into your food, and there's the issue of sodium. Too much salt can harm your health. So while canning extends shelf life, it has its downsides. Alright, let's talk about BPA. This chemical, as I mentioned, is used in the lining of many canned foods to prevent rust and spoilage. The problem is, BPA is what we call an endocrine disruptor. It means it can mimic the hormones in our bodies, messing with our delicate hormonal balance. BPA has been linked to an increased risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and even certain types of cancers. Studies have also shown a possible connection between BPA exposure and obesity, fertility issues, and even developmental problems in children. Speaking of children, they're particularly vulnerable to the effects of BPA. Their little bodies are still developing, and exposure to this chemical can disrupt that process in some pretty scary ways. The good news is that there are now BPA-free alternatives available. However, it's important to note that even some of these alternatives might not be completely risk-free. So what's the takeaway here? Be mindful of BPA. Check those labels, opt for BPA-free options whenever possible, and remember, reducing your overall consumption of canned foods is always a good idea. Let's talk about sodium in canned foods. Canned foods are major culprits of hidden sodium. The American Heart Association recommends no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. One serving of canned soup can contain half your daily intake. Too much sodium raises blood pressure, straining your heart. This can lead to heart disease and stroke. Read labels and choose low sodium options. Rinsing canned beans can help remove excess sodium. We often reach for canned foods thinking we're making healthy choices, especially when fresh produce is out of season. But here's the truth. The canning process can actually destroy a significant amount of nutrients in food. Remember that high heat treatment I talked about earlier? Well, it's great for killing bacteria, but it also breaks down those delicate vitamins and minerals that our bodies thrive on. Water-soluble vitamins, like vitamin C and B vitamins, are particularly vulnerable to heat. These vitamins are essential for a healthy immune system, energy production, and so much more. Fat-soluble vitamins like vitamins A, D, E, and K are a bit more heat stable but can still be affected by the canning process. These vitamins are crucial for vision, bone health, blood clotting, and protecting our cells from damage. And it's not just vitamins that take a hit. Minerals like potassium, magnesium, and folate, all essential for various bodily functions, can also be diminished during the canning process. One of the biggest selling points of canned foods is their long shelf life. I mean, who hasn't found a can of soup in the back of their pantry that's years past its expiration date? But while that extended shelf life might seem convenient, it's actually a bit of a red flag. Think about it. How can food stay fresh for years on end? It's all thanks to those preservatives, high sodium content, and the canning process itself, which essentially creates an anaerobic environment where bacteria can't thrive. But here's the catch. Over time, even with all those preservatives, the quality of the food inside the can can deteriorate. The longer food sits in a can, the greater the chance of chemical leaching. Remember BPA? Well, it and other chemicals used in can linings can slowly migrate into the food, especially if the can is dented, rusted, or stored in a hot environment. So that can of chili that's been sitting in your pantry since 2018, it might be technically safe to eat, but it's probably not doing your health any favors. We've talked about the general dangers of canned foods, but let's take a moment to focus on a group that's particularly vulnerable: children. Kids are still growing and developing, and their bodies are much more sensitive to the effects of harmful chemicals and nutrient deficiencies. One of the biggest concerns with canned foods for children is the high sodium content. As we discussed earlier, too much sodium can lead to a whole host of health problems, and children are even more susceptible to its effects. Their developing kidneys have a harder time flushing out excess sodium, putting them at increased risk for high blood pressure, kidney damage, and other health issues. Then there's the issue of BPA exposure. Children's developing brains and bodies are particularly vulnerable to the hormone-disrupting effects of BPA. Studies have linked BPA exposure in children to behavioral problems, ADHD, obesity, and even an increased risk of certain cancers later in life. So, what's the bottom line? It's best to limit canned foods in your child's diet as much as possible. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, and you might be wondering, what am I supposed to eat now? Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. There are plenty of healthy and delicious alternatives to canned foods out there. First and foremost, prioritize fresh, whole foods whenever possible. Fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains. These are the building blocks of a healthy diet. When fresh produce isn't available or in season, frozen foods can be a great option. Frozen fruits and vegetables are often picked at peak ripeness and flash frozen, preserving their nutrients better than canning. If you do opt for canned goods, choose those that are packed in water or their own juice rather than sugary syrups or heavy sauces. Look for low sodium or no salt added options, and be sure to rinse canned beans and vegetables under running water to remove excess sodium. Glass jars are another alternative to cans. While they might not be as widely available, glass doesn't contain BPA, so it's a safer option. So there you have it, the truth about canned foods. Remember, knowledge is power. And now that you know the potential risks, you can make informed choices for yourself and your family. Start by reading labels carefully, opting for low sodium options whenever possible, opting for BPA-free options whenever possible, and incorporating more fresh, whole foods into your diet. If you found this information helpful, hit that like button, leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to Eat for Life for more health-conscious content.